I've talked to a lot of people about this, but I feel like this is a group that really gets it. Gets VR, gets the technology in a lot of different ways. So interested to see what you think about Vulnicura, which is um, a piece from Björk. She did it about 6 years ago. I'm calling it a nine song VR masterpiece, and I can do that because it's not us necessarily that did this. It's many different production groups, so it's not my masterpiece. Although my team did a lot of work to dust it off, as I said. But a lot of people, like literally, probably 100 people, have put time and effort into this. Our credit sheet is many pages long and scrolls for about 2.5 minutes. So. I'll talk more about that, but I consider definitely at least parts of this to be a VR masterpiece in various ways. So I'm going to walk you through Vulnicura, and there's a bit of a danger in doing this that I expose too much or reveal too much. Like it's spoiler alert. I'm going to tell you some things, and you might not normally do this with a movie because then you wouldn't go see the movie, but. I'm confident enough, like there's enough in this VR piece that you're just going to want to go watch it in VR. And it's a full, at least hour experience if you just sit there and dedicate your way through it, probably more like an hour and a half. And you're going to want to watch it multiple times. It's rich and deep and full 3D and stereoscopic and everything else. So I'm not afraid to show you a lot of the details here today as we walk through this. But Vulnicura is a 9-song visual album, we call it. And I'm showing you the map right now, which is when you enter the experience, you enter this Icelandic landscape. Björk is from Iceland, if anyone doesn't know that. And you navigate your way through this experience. You can teleport or pull up the map from your wrist puck and navigate that way. And these are the names of the songs: Stone Milker, Lion Song, Family, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm kind of going to go through, I'm not going to go through every song, but I'm going to go through most of them and some of the highlights and tell you what we did on each of them. Let's see. I'm just going to start before we even jump into the songs on some of the production companies involved, because as I mentioned, and I don't have time to mention everyone, but there are some very prestigious companies involved in the development of Vulnicura. Just to mention a few of them, a few of the big ones. Wolf and Crow out of Barcelona is a pretty prestigious VFX firm that's done a lot of good work, and they're great to work with. We got to work with them on this one. They do a lot of advertising work. This one happens to be for Beats by Dr. Dre for Apple that they worked on. But Wolf and Crow is one of the big ones. Analog Studio out of the UK did a lot of the core Unity work and programming, and they did really compiled a lot of the project. And all these companies are healthy and active and still doing great work. So it's great that we could work with them. X-Res, based out of Los Angeles, got acquired. They're now Hyper Acuity / Blue Planet, and they are the ones that they actually scanned when we get to Iceland, I'll talk about the landscape, but they went over and scanned the landscape with drones using LiDAR. They were custom built drones at the time, and generated all of the geometry for the scenery that we're using. And we've had the pleasure of working with them as well. Andrew Thomas Wong is a very avant-garde producer down in Los Angeles that does a lot of great artwork and works on a lot of music videos and a lot of film production as well. He's worked with Björk, of course, and he's working with FKA Twigs, a very popular kind of cutting edge artist right now, and he was actively involved in this project. So I've been down to LA a couple times, and it's been great working with him. So, and last but not least, on the audio front, Black Saloon Studios and world-renowned audio engineer Mandy Parnell worked with Björk. She's worked with Aphex Twin and many others, and we got to work with her on this, but she did most of the audio mastering on the project. So again, those are just some of the people that worked on it. Again, our crest list is 100 people long, but I'll walk you through some of the work that we did on this. I'm calling it a healing journey. And so to give you some background, again, spoiler alert on Vulnicura, but it's a healing journey. It's a story of her breakup with Matthew Barney, who is another famous artist that she married and had a child with, and they broke up. And so it's a pretty intense story of their their romance and their breakup and their healing process, and it goes through kind of sequentially in that order. So it's a healing journey. I do find it is, quite therapeutic in certain ways, especially for certain people, especially people who've been through divorce or rough relationships. So it's interesting that way. But I'll start with Stone Milker. Stone Milker is the first piece, the first song that you encounter as you step through. You go through a kind of a lobby, and then you walk through the Icelandic environment to get to Stone Milker. Directed by Andrew Thomas Wong, that I mentioned earlier. You could read all of the team involved, but the scene here is an Icelandic lava beach. A lot of this was filmed or captured or otherwise inspired by Icelandic environments, and this one's on a lava beach. This one, there's various formats as well, delivery formats. This one is basically a 360 stereoscopic video. Interesting data point, it was shot with just 3 GoPros, like 6 years ago. So for those of you that are into the camera tech, which I think is most of you, camera tech has come a long way. This was literally 3 GoPros strapped back to back in the day. And that was kind of state of the art. I believe it was a custom 3D printed mount that they used, but just 3 GoPros, and they produced 6K stereoscopic video. But one of our challenges was we didn't have actually access to that source video. So, for example, we couldn't restitch it. So we still have stitch lines where we might be able to fix those if we had access to the original. But this is what it looks like. I think I have the full version here. I'll play this whole thing here, but I won't play the audio. You can, of course, go and listen in the VR piece, but you can see that it's pretty dramatic. The upgrade that we were able to do here, and so we went from 6K to 8K stereoscopic. Fast forward a little bit, it gets a little bit more interesting here. Yes, and more dramatic as well. You can see in the before version on the left side, you could barely see some of the lava rocks and some of the water, and just the contrast was very, very poor. We also went through another round of color grading. We had a really good color grading expert that helped us regrade and process it and just get a lot richer colors. Her dress that she's wearing in this environment was just really a little bit drab, where it's obviously a very bright dress. And so let's see, scan through here. Yeah, this piece where there's kind of 3 Bjorks. And this is, I'll say about the piece, it's really kind of a neat piece, and it's a neat introduction because when you go into the song, you really feel like you're standing next to Bjork, which is super cool. Especially for big fans that have never had a chance to meet her, which is most people, because she hides out in Iceland all the time. And also, even before the VR piece, there was an iPhone app. I think you can still download the Stone Milker iPhone app or iPad, and you can get a sense for this and just kind of rotate around. So that was neat. But really, in the VR piece, it's nice to be up close with Bjork. Akin to, a lot of people are kind of over the moon about the Alicia Keys piece, where you're basically standing next to her, and while she's playing piano. So anyway, we were able to do a really nice upgrade on Stone Milker. By the way, I'm totally open to questions during the presentation if anyone wants to raise their hand, and Matt, if you want to keep an eye out for that. But like Matt said, we can certainly come back to questions at the end too. Black Lake was another fun one. This is again directed by Andrew Thomas Wong. This one's inside a lava cave, and fun fact: the lava cave where this was filmed is no longer there because it's been consumed by lava. So if you remember about 2 years ago in Iceland, where they were playing soccer by a volcano and stuff like that, if you saw that footage from Iceland, that volcano has now consumed the area where this was captured. So that lava cave was captured in full 3D using the scanning technology we talked about earlier, but it's no longer there. So you can go there virtually still in Vision Pro and MetaQuest. One of the project details, in terms of project details, one of the interesting aspects of this is it was designed as an ultra wide video, 2560 by 720, which is just like has anyone ever used that? Raise your hand if you have. Probably not. It was designed and commissioned by New York MoMA, Museum of Modern Art. And so let me just fast forward to the next one. This is what Black Lake looked like. And it initially premiered in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And they had special super wide screens down a very long hallway. That's how it was shown. It was two pieces. It's two videos, A and B, and A plays on the left side and B on the right, and they're synced and they play simultaneously with a single audio track. But so our challenge on this one was kind of reformatting it for VR. And it was done for the first version when it was released on Steam, but not very well. So this is one we really did put some work into redesigning and refactoring it. Just play a little clip. This is the stereoscopic video. This is mostly Björk walking around in the cave, in the lava cave, on the landscape. Happens to be the most R-rated of the videos out there, but let's skip that and jump. Sorry, jumping around here. Here we go. This so what we did with this was to create in the cave. We actually had to expand the cave a little bit. The cave itself was too thin, and you would get this kind of too close feeling with the screens. And so we expanded the cave and created we called it a tuna can. We created two curved screens, long and wide, so we could fit the resolution. We upscaled the video and then fit these into the cave. So it's got this feeling where it really feels like it's part of the cave. You can comfortably kind of look to the left and look to the right and watch both videos playing in VR at the same time and navigate through it. So kind of you can see, and you can see the cave exit on the other side. The hearts, by the way, the pink things are the totems that you click on so that gets to the next family. So you can see those kind of trailing out to the next room and out of the cave in this case. That was Black Lake. Let's see. Family. Family again, done mostly by Black Lake Studios in this case. The scene is an Icelandic landscape. Oh, excuse me. Family is there are a couple pieces that are like fully involved, interactive, full avatar animation, particle simulation pieces. Family and Not Get are those two pieces. And Family is, I believe, a 12-minute epic piece. So it's very long. It took us, Family probably took 40% of our effort overall as a team. Our technical artist on this one had to almost recreate and rewrite like 60% of the shaders and a lot of the animations and simulations almost from scratch. So huge effort, but it's kind of 3 segments, and it walks through. It has Björk's avatar animating. It's got an aurora in it. It's got a number of nice pieces. And so this is one that you'll really enjoy, I think, in the piece. It also goes through the cave, the canyon that was captured with drones. One of the pieces that's central, components, kind of elements that's central throughout the piece is what we call the fossil. And this is Björk in a yoga pose called the heart opener over the back of a stone. And so what happens is through her healing experience, she gets into the heart opener and there's a wound on her chest that heals. In fact, in Family, you stitch it back together. That's an interactive piece of Vulnicura. So you're stitching her heart back together, and she rises and kind of heals herself through this healing pose. But I'll just play a little bit of the remaster here. You can see, so for example, the hands, we remastered a lot of things, but for example, the hands, The articulated hands um, were a little dull and not well defined in the original piece. And so we did a lot of work to clean those up and just make them more well defined, more polished, and we improved the colors. So you can see here's the after version. And hopefully that's fairly obvious too. It should look quite a bit better. Um, we just had our art team put a lot of work into making it richer and deeper and more involved. Not Get is another kind of epic 9-minute piece. This one, a lot of people in original Vulnicura say that this was their favorite piece. I don't have a lot of detail to share on this one. I want you to watch this in headset, but I'll talk about a couple of the pieces. She starts out in the Icelandic landscape, and then it kind of that landscape explodes into particles or disintegrates into particles that then drift upward. There's a number of hair simulations if anyone's deep into CG. And it's not her hair, but we call them wigs. And so there's this thing called the death wig floating above her, and it's like a monster sort of uh, I don't know, goading her throughout the piece. She's got a number of hair simulations hanging off of her as well during the piece, and sort of this whole area disintegrates around her, and she grows into a giant, almost a goddess type form. It's a really beautiful piece. And definitely one of the most technically challenging. I would say the most technically challenging, actually. The Death Wig, we joked because we knew it was this big monster we had to tackle, and we were kind of in a way um, kind of procrastinating to get to it. And we joked that it's the big boss man, like in both in the literal and every metaphorical sense. You know, when you're doing a game, like this was the big boss man that you have to defeat. And for our project alone, we had to defeat it, and we did. And kind of in the piece, you'll see it's kind of the big boss man. Bit of a tangent here, just to describe to take a second and describe why we did this piece and why we've invested, really a full solid year as a team. But we started back 2 years ago, started talking to Björk. Why did we do this? And there's many reasons, there's many layers to the reasons, but um, first of all, we saw an opportunity here. We saw a piece that a lot of people had seen, but not really. Had seen parts of it, and there's so much here. It's such a rich piece that so many people have put a lot of effort into it. So we wanted to get it out there. We wanted people to see it now that we have devices that are capable. And then another reason is PulseJet. This is our business. Our studio is founded on kind of the idea that VR music videos will become a thing, and the visual albums will become a thing, and that it's the next frontier for artists. Like we consider what we call the spherical canvas to be a new art form, and we think that Björk took advantage of it better than anyone else in this music format. And so she really pioneered the space and did so 5 or 6 years ago. I haven't seen anything else like it. I mean, we have competitors out there doing things like Amaze VR, for example, but their stuff is just really not that good, in my opinion. And it's not that thorough. Where the amount of, the thought and depth that Bjork and her team put into this was really just tremendous. So all those, and it's been very rewarding for us in the end. We're super happy we took the project, and we've learned a lot, and it's really hit all of our goals. So that's a bit of a tangent, but um, back to the remastering. One of the pieces, of course, central to a visual album is the music, the audio, which kind of in a way, if you do it right, it gets lost in a way. You don't think about it. It should be part of the experience and so integrated that it doesn't really stand out. But at the same time, you should notice a few things. And so we did a lot of work on the audio. We had a master audio engineer, a master 3D audio engineer, Caleb Klomperens, implemented all of this. He knows 3D audio like no one I've ever met for sure. And I've met a lot of audio engineers. But to break down kind of what we did here, there were, I would say, two main pieces to the audio. There was spatially remastering it, and actually Björk has a new audio engineer named Björk that redid all of the audio mastering for just for Apple Spatial Audio. It wasn't even for Vision Pro, but of course it works well that spatial audio drops right into 3D, and we can use that. So we used the new remastered spatial audio for this piece. The second piece is called Aura 3D, and that's really sound placement. And this was done for the original piece, but not very well. And you couldn't tell given the device technology at the time. So we had the opportunity to take instruments and place them in the scene. And for example, when you're in Family, there's a piece where you're flying down that lava cave, and Björk is leading you, and you're stitching back her heart. And we're able to place components of the audio throughout the cave so that as you're flying down the cave, they're moving by you. So this was fun to work on, and I see a lot more of this, like just the ability to take a synthesizer and spin it around your head, is a great thing. And so Aura 3D allowed us to do that. The Dolby tools allowed us to do that, and we had a lot of fun with this. A couple words on the landscape, and let me bring up some models instead of looking at boring old slides. I happen to have some of these models handy. It was a little more interesting to look at, but I'll talk a little bit more about the 3D environment we were working with. This is the ravine. This is a ravine that's used in the Family piece, and you fly down this piece at the end, and then we turn it into kind of purplish and red colors to make it a little bit more ethereal. But I alluded earlier, and I'll tell you a little bit more detail. So when this was first captured several years ago, drones were nascent. There was no DJI off-the-shelf drone you could buy, and there was no off-the-shelf LiDAR you could go buy to catch this stuff. So it was custom-built drone with custom rotors and custom batteries. Batteries was a big challenge back then, and custom LiDAR attachments. Now this stuff is all off the shelf, so which is pretty exciting. And we have a bunch of drones in our fleet at the studio here, but it's developing every day, and DJI has more technology for this every day. So they have a whole suite of software and tools that can capture this type of thing. But at any rate, we got this geometry and we did a lot of cleanup on it. Before we got it, it certainly wasn't this high fidelity. We had Environment Expert go improve the mapping and make it really, really high def. What's another piece here? We got that's the ravine. This is the cave that we used in Black Lake. Again, the topology when we got it was not this detailed. And so I don't even know the techniques that our artists used to clean it up and make it look extremely high def. But it's turned out to be kind of central, very, very central to the scene in the end. So a lot of cleanup on that one. And last one I've got here. This is the entry scene with the fossil. And so when you come into the scene, you see this, and the lake and the mountains will be off in the distance in the final scene. But we use several decimation techniques to make the polygon count lower in the distance than they are in the center for polygon reduction, and which turns out to be quite a challenge. We're actually still going through app approval on this. And on Vision Pro, we can achieve pretty great frame rates. On MetaQuest, it's a much bigger challenge. So they do have a hard requirement for 60 FPS. and we have some scenes that are still at 40 or 50. So, decimation and polygon count are still super important. And they will be forever, I guess. But we don't think this scene is still lightweight enough that, a modern day device should be able to handle it. So yeah, we did a lot of work in the environments. I won't go through everything. There are mountains. We cleaned up all the mountains and redid the mountains. Here's one good example of just the amount of work that we put into a mossy rock. And there were, late night calls literally with Björk and James Mary, her cohort, on the details of what the flowers in Iceland look like and what the moss looks like. So details like this matter to an artist who's a perfectionist like Björk. Quicksand was another video. I'll play the full version of that one. Here, yeah, okay, this was a nice one. A very dramatic improvement here. Production techniques on this one were, this was actually filmed on stage. It was a stage performance in Japan with multiple cameras around the stage, capturing a full 360 scene. And then it was integrated with a particle simulation. And it was very blurry when we got it. So we actually went back to source content on this one and basically remastered it and restitched it completely. And we were able to make a very dramatic improvement. And so this one is just way better. That's a pretty incredible piece, as you'll see in headset. Scores. This was a fun one. So this was basically music animation. And this is fun because we got to work with really a kind of a savant level genius, Stephen Malinowski, in Berkeley, who has created something called the music animation machine. And this creates visual scores out of any MIDI sequence. And so you can literally take any MIDI file and import it into his engine, and it will create an animation like this. Now, for anyone musically inclined here, this doesn't look much like a score. It doesn't have a bass clef and a treble clef, but other than that, it is a visual representation of a score. But it's very unique, and he's got a different color and a different object for every note, sorry, not for every note, for every instrument. And so Björk has she travels with a symphony of practically 100 people, flutes, harps, you name it, and so each instrument in these animations has a different color, a different object, a different way that it animates. You can see some are spirals, some are kind of butterfly objects. I'll just cut forward a little bit here. Yeah, there can be a lot going on in these animations. So now, but in the original piece, what frustrated us, they had this as a 2D video just wrapped around a barrel, like wrapped around you. We're like, wait, this is a VR piece. Shouldn't it be 3D? Shouldn't it be a full 3D piece instead of just a video? And so this one, we really took on the challenge and decided to re-implement Stephen Malinowski's music animation machine in full 3D. And we recreated each of these objects in 3D. So what was a ball before is now a sphere. What was a cube is now a cube. Or sorry, what was a circle is now a sphere. What was a box is now a cube. What was a spiral is now a 3D object that represents it. So they're full 3D objects. And so I'll go to the 3D version. Not only are these actual 3D objects now, but you can grab a slider and scale them and grow them. There's the distance and the scale. And so you can get them closer to you. And there's a cool feat, like you can do distance equals 0 and it basically goes through your body. So that's a neat feature. Sort of as an accident that came out of this. But this gives a much just richer 3D experience. We do plan to use this MIDI animation machine for lots of other things and lots of other songs because it's a general purpose thing. Sorry, this is filmed in my studio. But this is what it looks like if it's kind of coming through your body. It's just this kind of straight line of notes coming through you. But yeah, we had a lot of fun with that one. And great working with Stephen Malinowski and his team on that. What else? I think this is the last one here. Mouth mantra. I'll leave most of this to your imagination, but it's kind of a fun one because it's done inside Bjork's mouth, filmed inside Bjork's mouth, if you will. And so they actually made a full life-size 3D model of her mouth. They took film from within inner mouth. There's a number of different production techniques used to make this, but basically, when you go in VR and you jump into this experience, you're in Bjork's mouth. And so it's really kind of funny when, we're working on the piece and we're spending a lot of time on family and not getting, then we hand the headset to someone and they're like, I want to be in Bjork's mouth, and they jump into this one. It's one of the simpler ones actually from a production standpoint, but it is a lot of fun. And fun little story that Bjork told us when we were working with her about this one. Her dentist happened to be in London when they were premiering the VR piece, and he was there with other dentists at some dental convention. So he's there with his colleagues, and he's like, "Hey, can I get tickets to the show tonight?" She's like, "Of course." And then, by the way, here's tickets to the VR exhibit at London's Museum of Modern Art. And he got to go there with his colleagues, and they're all in the VR piece. And he's like, "Wait, that's her cavity that I did when she was like 6 years old." Because they had this, it's such a highly accurate model of her mouth that he was able to identify the cavities he put in. So he said it was like the proudest moment of his life. Kind of funny, but yeah, so here's a couple of good shots. Here's our remastered high def version of the mouth, but I'll leave most of this one to the imagination. You can go try it for yourself. I think that's about all I had. And so yeah, we are very close to launching. We're going to Iceland. I'm flying out there Monday, and we're going to launch it at a full moon event with Bjork and Chinese DJ collective called Subcult and Rian Trainer, a bunch of DJs at a full moon event. And then it'll be publicly available on September 9th on both Vision Pro and Meta Quest. So I hope I didn't spoil too much. I hope there's still a little surprise in for you. It should be a lot actually, because there's a lot here. And like I say, just not getting family alone are 9, 12-minute epic pieces. So there's a lot here. Hope you enjoy it.